Going to call the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting to order. And first up on the agenda is roll call, please.
Mrs. Root,
Here.
Mrs. Hanchett. Here. Mr. Barnes.
Present.
Mr. Curran.
Here.
Mr. Havey.
Here.
Mr. Healy.
Here.
Mr. Ricky.
Here.
And Mrs. Ricketts-Wales. Here. 8 present.
Thank you. Next up is the approval of the February 19th minutes, and I will entertain a motion.
Barnes.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Next up is approval of the March 19th minutes, and I will entertain a motion.
Havey will move that.
Do we have a second? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. I'm just going to acknowledge that in our packet and with the agenda that we received our monthly report from Ashley Smith, Director of Economic Development, Craig Clark, Industrial Development Agency, Keir Durham, Director of Planning, and Rita Sobeck Lynch, Employment and Training Program Director. Their monthly reports are in our packet. If we have any questions, we can go back to them. Next up, Keir, we have some really good news, and I'm going to let Keir explain this.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I gave you a little tickle last month during my other report about comprehensive plans that we're going to have some good news to share this month. We were notified by the New York Planning Federation that our office with the town of Belfast had been awarded a prize, if you will. And so last week we were at the New York Planning Federation conference up in Cooperstown. And as part of that, they presented us with this award. And there were quite a few submissions to this particular category. And so we were quite pleased. Stacy Beardsley oversaw this project, ran it through the day-to-day work, and then I did oversight, did the maps, helped the town approve the thing. And so that was our team, as it were. Many people there were quite shocked that a town on their very first try of writing a comprehensive plan would win this kind of recognition. And a lot of congrats were given to us while we were there. So I just wanted to let you know that we've had some success, and always appreciate being acknowledged from a statewide entity like this. So there's the award.
Thank you, Keir.
Congratulations.
And yeah, I would like to congratulate you, Stacy, and the people in the town of Belfast for their hard efforts of putting that comprehensive plan together. How long does it typically take for a town to come up with a final comprehensive plan?
I always try to run them in a year. Typically there lingers a little longer for one reason or another. It was amusing at the lunch table when we came back to the table with our award, and they said, "Wow, we worked on our comprehensive plan for 3 years and we haven't finished it." And I said, I would never, if I can help it, we're never going to take 3 years to do a comprehensive plan. That's crazy. So, good success.
Yeah. Kudos to you and your staff in Belfast. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we're going to have Tom Windus. He's going to give us an update on the Gateway project, and I've asked Tom to come perhaps every other month to keep us posted on what's going on as far as economic development out at the Gateway, and I'm calling it the Gateway to segregate it from all the other development that's going on, that
Yes.
sometimes we call it Area 51.
Sorry.
And so I've asked Tom to talk about specifically what's going on to help us get a hotel and restaurant in our water tower. So, Tom?
Okay, County Area 51 itself, and that's why it was affectionately known as Area 51, it's close to subgrade. They've been working on getting all of the storm drainage basins dug out. It's been very good gravel, so we've used it for subgrade on the road itself. We're waiting for it to dry out. We've had a couple dry days, and then it'll rain again. So as soon as it dries out, we'll do the finish grading, and then the pile of millings that you see out front, we'll put them on the roadway. And basically, our work at this point in time will be done until we further decide if we're going to ever pave it, or if we get development in there, then obviously we'll want to pave it.
Okay.
Water line and tank treatment off of the S-curves. So the tank and treatment facilities have been programmed off of the S-curves. I know, been here before, talked about that. Water line is, of course, along County Route 51. The only grant we have at this point in time is the ARC grant funding, $740,000. So the estimate right now that would encapsulate what the grant funds were for. So the grant funds were for a tank and 1,100 linear feet of water line. So we've kind of segmented it out a little bit to try and accomplish what the grant was meant for. That total project is between $3 and $3.5 million. So, and then to finish the project, we've actually designed the water line to loop from County Route 20 back to County Route 20. But to finish everything, you're looking at about $4.2 million. So we've finally got estimates, and then that whole plans and specs have been submitted to DOH for permitting. So we're moving along on that. I do know that we have submitted some additional grant applications. We have a little bit of timeline on the ARC grant itself, so we feel like we have time to wait and hear. If we've heard, if we get successful with more monies, that's even better. But we should be ready within, a few months. If the decision was to be made to move forward with bidding, we'd be able to do that.
Question,
Sure.
but we got the money set aside already if need be, if we need to dip into it for that project, is that correct?
That's out of my realm.
Just depends on how much money you need for the project.
Right, well, what do we set aside for development down at the crossroads?
My understanding, Mike, that we have spent some of that money, and that I believe the last time I asked the treasurer where we were, don't quote me on this, it was we had about $4 million left. About that?
I think it's somewhere between 3.5 and 4. It's a little under
Okay.
4.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't, okay.
So if we need it, we're not, we got available.
But
Okay.
you talked about going out for other grants. Are these another ARC grant, or what are we working with the Delta
is correct.
group to go out and find these grants? And that way,
correct.
we're looking at perhaps federal money?
Correct. If federal money seems to be the predominant money available, however, we know what that complicating factor is at the moment.
Right.
But we're still on track for this year, as far as we know, for a grant. Is that correct or no?
We've been awarded one grant, and we're working on that. That grant is used towards the construction of a water tower. Of course, not like a up-high tower like you might think, more of a tank lower to the ground type of tower. And then we keep applying for more grant funding, so.
So
We
that
might
water-
have to, I do believe we have to resubmit one due to some of the way they're looking at the grants, but hopeful that we'll receive money.
So that water tower is basically for fire suppression,
That is correct.
first point, right?
Yes.
And then as we develop it out, we're looking at a different water tower. This is down the road when all the other development is going on, perhaps.
We've actually designed it to where, initially we had it sized for future build-out.
Right.
Per some multiple discussions, and I think it's the best solution, is our site is large enough to have 2 tanks. So we've actually sized it
Okay.
in half. So initially, the one tank will handle fire flow for a 4-story hotel, if that was to go in there. But it also helps in case there's a water main break somewhere between the S-curves and Friendship, you still have water there for consumption. So it's, so that's the water side of things. The other thing, Mike, to talk about money's out there, we still have sewer.
Yeah.
So it's really going to be a decision of how you want to spend that money and where you want to spend that money.
And
So-
Tom, I think one of the things we haven't funded yet would be the expansion of the water line to run along County Road 51, right? So it runs up County Road 20, but as we construct County Road 51, we'll also want to loop around that road as well, and that was not covered by the grant. So as Tom said, it was for that tower for fire suppression, although we know we can plan to expand that if we need to.
Right, but that loop would be, that's not, you're not talking about that big of an expense for that water line on 51, are
And
you?
what you think that is expensive or not. That's what I was explaining, is that it actually does include, the initial ARC application was for a tank and 1,100 feet of water line, which would bring you in from Quickly's out to where a hotel would tie in. So we have to accomplish both of those to get to 790.
So
740.
let me stop you there, and just, because I'm kind of just, so that, we got a ARC grant for 700 and some thousand, correct?
Correct, 740.
And that 740,000 will do those two things, get the water tower and the 1,100 feet of water?
We have to do those two things to get 740. I know it's semantics, but you see what I'm saying?
So we
That
have
was
to
what we
spend the money
applied for.
first before we can
Yes.
get the money, we
That
have to
is
get
correct.
paid.
Yes.
So we may have to either get a grant to, or use our own money that was set aside. We're going to have to spend that out to get that money back.
And if the projects cost more than the grant, which could be likely, we need to either supplant that with county funds, which is why you've used some of your fund balance already, because you have to commit that when you make these grant applications, that you have those funds
Yes.
available. Or find additional grant funds, which is where we keep picking away at these grants.
Correct.
Yep. So, okay, so to even move forward with just the water tower and the 1,100 feet of water, we need to, two options. A, use our money that we set aside, 700 and some thousand dollars, to get the work done so we can get paid for that, and/or try to find another grant in the meantime. And if we go out to the federal, it could be 2 years before you get this money. So there will be no progress unless we use our own money to do it and then go after grant to help pay us back. That's the way I'm reading it.
It gets a little bit more complicated because you can't usually apply for grants to be spent retroactively. So, like Tom said, this is a reimbursement grant, but you have to first get the grant to then be able to spend the money to then
Right.
be able to recoup the grant funds. So,
Yeah, it's, I've not seen in my time frame a grant that where you actually, once you build it and try and go out to get monies to do it.
Right.
They're not going to give you a grant. It's got to be beforehand, which means everything's got to be in hand. So not only do you get your grant award, you got to get the contracts in hand, signed, then you can start doing it, which kind of is why we're on hold on the fairgrounds.
So what kind of timeline are we looking at
So if we
to
decide to
get
move
to get a
forward,
water tower?
if we decide to move forward, if y'all decide to move
Yes,
forward.
yes, if that
um,
decision's made.
If that decision is made, like I said, with the permitting, plans and specs have gone to DOH. So I would assume, kicking back and forth a couple times, I would say by the end of, we're in the middle of April, so by the end of May, we should have a permit in hand.
Hmm.
So we could theoretically, if you decided to use our own funds to make up the difference.
Right.
You could go to bid right away.
Okay,
So it could be then, or you might want to wait a little bit and just to see on this next round. But that's really going to be a decision that can be made. But
Okay.
hopefully by the next time I come in, we'll be able to make that decision.
2 months?
2 months.
2 months. So it's April, May, June. You'll be back in June, and then
Sure.
we'll have a better idea and probably have to make a decision.
I think on the team working on this for the county's end in conjunction with the IDA, and, you know, we have Hunt Engineers and Delta Development, we have a lot of people working on this. I think we feel pretty good on the water end. But as Tom mentioned, the sewer end is a completely different story.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother topic. I'm not
Right.
even, I am not approaching that one today. I just want to talk about the water tower, the road, and the 1,100 feet of water.
Okay.
And
I
a
have
commitment- and a
I have an
commitment
update on
from-
wastewater if you want to hear it, but.
Yeah, no, and a commitment from this county, so then the IDA can take that commitment to a hotel.
Right.
So
That's
they
the whole,
need the
as I
date.
understand it,
That's my goal, that's what I'm pushing for, so every
Okay.
2 months I will keep asking that question.
Am I
Sounds
correct
good.
on that? It's my understanding, last I talked with Mr. Clark, that was a holdup on the hotel was, they had a hotel. I understand that they have a,
He's around the corner if you want to ask him.
you want to speak to that? But that's holding up the hotel and the restaurant. And the increase in sales tax.
I think he did that so he could escape. Yes, as soon as we have that commitment, it's really a commitment much more than even breaking ground. So we know we can tell a developer, is it in 1 year or is it 2 years? Because it's going to take a good 2 years to actually get a hotel up and running. So it's the commitment is what I'm looking for.
Okay, thank you, Tom. We'll see you again in June. Okay, next up, we have Ashley Smith, and she's going to give us a quick update on the Advancing Allegheny County EDO. We've made some progress, and it's kind of exciting, so Ashley, tell us a little bit about it, bring us up to date.
Sure. Good afternoon. As Deb mentioned, she asked me to just give a quick update on the EDO. So I'll give you sort of the full spectrum at the 30,000-foot view. The organization is officially a nonprofit entity, still waiting on their tax exemption status, so that part is still pending. The board actually met for their first official board meeting on March 18th, and so I will share with you who the board members are. It's Deb Root, county legislator, and was voted in as the acting chairwoman for the board of directors. Lee James, the Cuba Town supervisor. Jeff Stager with Accord. Kevin White with the Cuba Chamber of Commerce and White Imprints. Gretchen Capella with Community Bank. Kathy Young with Cornell Cooperative Extension. Carol Marciano with UR Medical Center and Jones. And then Ken Bates, the Inn at Houghton Creek. In that meeting, it was they covered the board of director expectations, mission, vision, values, and objectives for the EDO itself, proposed budget and grant pursuing opportunities, and then the decision to approach the county for a contractual partnership. Outside of that, the next board meeting is scheduled for May 6th, of which they have asked the Office of Economic Development to come in and just present the Camoin Associates strategic plan that the board approved, and then additionally the 5-year plan that you all have approved so that they can see where we are and where we're headed for the future. Questions on that?
Anybody have any questions?
I have a comment. It's a nice board. You're covering all your bases in that, so good job.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, next up, we're going to have Keir come back up, and we're going to talk about ACTDC. How many of you people know what ACTDC is? I know, some of you do. We don't hear about it very often. One of the reasons it's been here for 10 years and 8,
10,
10.
almost.
So we have this organization has a contract with Allegheny County, or Allegheny County has a contract with this organization that is up in December. So we're going to need to make a decision, and before we get there, thought it was, let's just rehash where we are, what it is, how it became, and then bring us up to date. Keir, I'm not asking for anyone to make any decision. This is just an awareness, education, and something to be thinking about as we move forward. It will be on our agenda and a future agenda, and a decision will have to be made. So I'll turn it over to you, Keir.
Okay, Brenda, maybe you can re-hit that so it's actually the PowerPoint instead of the presenter style. But just while that's getting sorted, I gave you 3 handouts. One is the Southern Tier West newsletter. That's just for your information. They are having their local government conference at the beginning of June, so I recommend you come. The other 2 is a single back and front page that has the original, a copy and paste of the original law from 2015. And then I gave you the PowerPoint just in case the PowerPoint didn't work, or you want something to take home with you. Is that working there, Brenda? That works, if it'll move. So this is a classic case. I'll be real quick with my wise comments, but Chairman Root called me the other day and said, hey, I think we ought to have a historical piece on how we got here with ACTDC. And I said, oh, that's no problem. I've got a previous PowerPoint I can update. Went to look for it, and File Explorer said, I can't find any PowerPoints anywhere on any of your drives. And I was a little concerned, to be honest. And then, thanks to the IT department, we got it fixed up. So I found the PowerPoint and we moved forward. Okay, that's sort of working. So this was, these first couple of slides, you know, we have 47,000 people in 1,035 square miles. And we have topography that's really challenging. And so these were concerns many years ago for how to get internet. And people think, oh, this all just started in 2015. But no, we were doing studies on internet service all the way back to 2000, and there were various efforts. So there's 5 of those covers showing there. I can't really read them from here on that screen, but you can see those 5 different efforts that predated this. One of the things that was concerning was how fast technology is changing. So back in those early 2000s, if you had dial-up, you were thrilled. And then about 2012, if you were getting a small amount of service, like 10, 20 meg, you were super thrilled, because then you could actually download a lot of stuff. And then in the course of just a couple of years, from 2013, when we started a lot of this work, to 2016, they jumped, so that the standards had jumped to 100 meg down and 25 up. And so that's a piece of this whole cautionary tale. There were a lot of projects that had brought internet to our county. There was the Allegheny Wireless Project Southern Tier West got back in 08, 600,000+. ION was 40 million plus was invested into our county to connect those yellow lines. There was another Southern Tier Broadband through Southern Tier West, another 600,000. And then Allegheny County got a project known as Connect New York. And I don't know if you can tell on that particular map, but the blue areas were all that were really covered by any kind of decent broadband back in 2014. Spectrum was the only game in town that was providing us service. So basically, just the villages were getting covered. So we went ahead and we applied for the grant, and we received a grant from New York State for $800,000, and there was $200,000 of local cash match required. Nothing is simple in this world, and I think you've heard this over and over just in the last half an hour, because we applied for the grant in 2012. We got a note saying that they would approve us in 2013. By 2014, they finally sent an official letter. And then there was no documentation or official contracts all the way until mid-2015. So this thing sat on the books for quite a while before we could even move. Challenging. Now it doesn't work. Hey, there we go. Okay, so thank you, Keith and Brenda. When we originally applied for the grant, there were only 8 towers in the 911 system. And at almost the exact same time we finally got our contract, 911 got additional money to build more towers. So we went from 8 up to 12 or so.
So I guess stop right there, Karen, go back and say the money that we got, that $600,000,
800, yes.
800, was for a broadband, not fiber in the ground.
It's a
Just
fixed
maybe-
wireless.
Right. Explain a little bit about that,
I
so we
can.
understand that.
I will. So in this whole process, and we think back to that first slide, the topography and the cost of getting service to people was our prime concern. So these projects, at that time, 1 mile of fiber install was $1 million a mile. We couldn't apply for that much. We couldn't provide very many service addresses with that. So we came up with the help of a consultant with this fixed wireless model where we put the transceivers actually, up onto the 911 towers. They're all connected to a service here, and then you can get a box put on your house or your business and pick up service directly from the 911 tower. Okay? So it's a little bit like the old Dish Network concept, only you're not shooting a satellite, you're shooting to one of our towers. And that's where you pick up your signal. So we had all these towers going in through the 911, and those little, they look like little pyramids on the left-hand map, show you where the towers are. And then on the right-hand map, it kind of gives you a feel for how bumpy our topography is. So that's really challenging because, and I'll get into that in a minute. So at the same time as we were just really getting going with the construction, this county legislature made a hard decision. And that hard decision was the legislature did not want to be in the middle of this thing. They wanted to have a separate local authority, public authority, that they create to actually administrate the construction, the ongoing maintenance, the legal issues, the fee structure, all these things. Okay? So at that time, they created the Allegheny County Telecommunication Development Corporation. And you have the full law from 2015 in your handouts. And here's just the first part. And the three items that made them do this is that the broadband access to the internet is critical to the continued economic vitality and growth of the county. Second one was that the operation and expansion of the wireless broadband service may be, keyword, may be, most effectively developed and operated by a local development corporation. And thirdly, the development of the wireless broadband internet service to authorize the creation of a local development corporation to develop and operate this service. So they made this very hard decision, and it was not unanimous. It was majority, obviously, but it took a lot of discussion. But at that time, the county didn't want to be in the middle of this thing, so they created this separate entity. So this is a county-created structure to operate our system. Okay? So I'm going to buzz through this stuff. So we got the contract for the first round of work, and it started in 2015, went through 2017, and we built on all these different towers that 911 had. We installed radios. We actually installed 3 different frequencies of radios on each tower at that time. And there's one monopole at the crossroads out behind our building. So what did we accomplish? At the end of that project, the green area is a really good signal up on this map. The orange and red are possible places that people could receive signal. So we were covering a very large part of our county that previously wasn't. Then in 2018, New York State announced that there's another round of grants coming out. And unfortunately, they said not allowed to be applied by municipalities. So here they had funded us to build this thing, and then they said you can't get any more money. That doesn't work well. And only corporations that had more than 20,000 customers were allowed to apply. Spectrum was protected by Governor Cuomo, and they were told that statewide they had to do 140,000 additional addresses. I don't think they did any here, but don't quote me on that. Armstrong was selected to do all those projects. During this time, 2018 to 2020, we had 2 last mile providers working with us. Actually, we had 3 for a while. Win-Win, and then Telstar and Southern Tier Wireless. What we found was the technology was challenging because that particular technology couldn't go through trees like your cell phone could. And so if a house was completely surrounded by trees, where there was 3 trees in the way, then that technology wasn't burning through. So that was not a good day when we figured that stuff out. And then the federal government announced the FFA? No, whatever it is. FCC, that's it. They announced that, oh, by the way, those 3.65 band radios, you can't use those anymore. So we had just put up all this stuff, and they said you can't. So those are a couple more hiccups. This picture is a map of what Armstrong ended up covering with their $40+ million of grant funding. Any of those lighter green areas are census blocks that they're covering.
So the dark areas?
The dark areas were not covered by them.
Not by them?
Right. They may have been covered by Spectrum
Gotcha.
or by us.
So the medium-colored areas, is that still the dark areas?
The very dark areas on this map were not covered by Armstrong. There's a couple of various shades of green that Armstrong was using on this map. So any of those lighter colors or the blue are covered by Armstrong.
So the dark green was covered by Spectrum and us. They put a lot in.
Maybe.
Why do you say maybe?
Because Armstrong did not get a grant to hit every single part of the uncovered
Right.
county.
They went by census.
And they only picked the ones that they thought they could make a nickel on, or.
They
or
picked
at
them
least-
or else they were assigned them. They were told, yeah.
Weren't they assigned those?
Yeah, they were assigned. They didn't
Well,
pick them.
They were told where they could go and where they couldn't.
Yes.
All of the remaining areas outside of Spectrum were put up for bid.
Oh.
And then Armstrong applied for the ones that they thought they could make work.
Okay.
So whether it's fiscally, physically, whatever. So they picked them and the state signed on.
Well, didn't the state and/or the federal focus shift also and went from broadband to fiber?
Well,
And-
fiber is a tool, whereas broadband is a blanket term for bringing you high-speed internet service.
Right.
So the state also changed their minds to be more fiber-oriented, and so that's part of the reason they haven't been wanting to fund this.
Right, yeah, they decided the broadband approach of broadcasting out there wasn't,
The fixed wireless has its purposes,
wasn't viable.
and other states are finding it useful. They're just, New York State has totally been entrenched in only one tool in the toolbox.
And has the federal government given up completely on funding for the wireless?
No.
No, it's
They-
still out there?
Most of their effort is fiber service, but there is money in the current, which we're jumping ahead, in the current BEAD funding. There will be some funds available for some other technologies.
Okay.
Hope that helps. This isn't simple stuff, and I had 10 minutes and I've already gone past it, but, so let's nip this off. In 2020, when we were faced with replacing all those 3.65 gigahertz radios, we were successful going through Southern Tier West, an Appalachian Regional Commission grant over $400,000 was approved. And so we started work in 2021 on this. All these towers listed there, with the exception of Grove, have had the old technology removed and replaced. As of last week, the last tower was done. There's some self-inflicted reasons why this took 4 years to do, and there are some things outside of nature's capacity to deal with that also contributed to why it took 4 years. But the project is done and is being closed out as I speak.
So this was a 3-year project that took 5,
It was a
and we're finally
It was a
closing it up.
2-year project
Yeah.
that took until last week. I won't go into any details.
No.
So how do we do? So this is fresh off the presses. We got the propagation study last week, and this is our new coverage map of what the new LTE, which is the same technology as your cell phone, so it actually does cut through trees and whatnot and curve around the earth better. At the end of our first project, we estimated that 8,200 some addresses could be served. As of this propagation last week, we estimate that we are now hitting about 15,000 addresses based on the 911 enumeration data. So that seems positive. Last thing, and these are things that Deb alluded to. These are issues and discussions that ACTDC and this board are probably going to have some follow-up conversations. The board is not well-funded, and our fee structure is not keeping up with the costs, so we have to reevaluate that. The last mile providers need marketing assistance and probably some business technical assistance. We need to discuss and look at other technology methods to fill in areas that are not currently being covered by Armstrong, Spectrum, or us, and bring service to those remaining folks. This is not just, so you can watch Netflix. A lot of people that are in those areas don't have great cell service either, and they only do Wi-Fi calling if they can do anything. So this is a public safety issue to make sure every single address is covered in this county somehow. We have board member issues. We need more, and some of ours are probably going to be retiring from our board in the coming year. And then the contract that was originally signed back in 2015 was a 10-year contract between the county and ACTDC. So that also has to be redone this year. So that's where we stand.
I have a quick question. Kier, just for the last mile providers, are they a public business, they are nonprofit, or?
They are both, we
Private.
currently have 2,
Okay.
and they are both private businesses.
And they are requesting help for marketing, or,
I
looking
think
at
they've
the-
had some maybe preliminary discussions, but we're just starting that conversation at this point, last month or so.
Trying to figure out how that would work. Obviously, it's beneficial for us as a county to make sure that it's out there. How do we fund a private business?
No, it
So-
wouldn't be funding them. It's more the technical assistance
Okay.
that our
It's a small
agencies or
business
our
development,
departments.
Perhaps,
Yes.
helping a small business develop and seeing where they could thrive
Okay.
in the marketplace and giving them the information of what the potential is. We still have 11,000 potential residents that we're not hitting, that nobody is hitting right now unless they go out to satellite.
Yeah, I do understand that. I was just wondering how we could help as a county on that end of it, if they're.
Historically, one of
Private.
the pros for this is that let's say up to last year or so, cost of signing up for these services was less than what they might have gotten from Armstrong or Spectrum. They keep changing their marketing deals, so we need to adjust accordingly.
Thank you.
Any
you.
other questions?
Thank you, Kier.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
I read somewhere recently there's some sizable grants out there for something. Does anything that pertain to what you're doing, or not? Are you going
That would
after
be the
them?
BEAD funding I referred to. That was the same pot of money that Verizon asked for a letter of support a few months ago from you. And that's another unknown. If they get BEAD funding and they cover a whole nother swath, where does that leave this entity? So we have a lot of, we're juggling a lot of questions and not enough answers.
And a very tight deadline on
We
that
haven't
BEAD.
been able to apply for that money currently.
You haven't been able to?
No.
Why is that?
Lack of a solid plan to go into the fiber world. Our group just hasn't been ready for that. We've been trying to finish this other project, so it's definitely a need to look at those things. I've had some conversations with the county administrator in the past half year about getting some outside technical assistance to work on a better plan for going forward, but we haven't actually made that deal yet, so.
So, and I'll follow up with the BEAD application, I think, is due April 25th. We don't have a plan. The board is talking about what is our vision for the next 5 years? What needs to be done? What needs to change? I mean, everything has changed so fast in 10 years. It's changed in 3 years. The technology is changing. So how do we reinvent ourselves and provide a service for the residents of Allegheny County that can't get them with pure fiber right now? So the board will come back, ACTDC will come back with some of those plans and their visions for how they feel they need to move forward before, of course, this board needs to renew that contract. So this was just hopefully to let you know, give you some history where we are, what we're struggling with, and some of the reasons why. So I hope it was helpful for everybody. Thank you, Kier.
Deb, can I,
Yes.
excuse me, do we know what Spectrum and Time Warner or whoever else at Frontier, what their plans are for expanding? Are they, I mean, they're not done, are they? They're still looking at adding customers and expanding, aren't they?
We really haven't heard much from Spectrum. We've tried to have a few meetings, and their plans are nebulous to us, at least. Frontier is going through a selling off, and they're probably going to be acquired by Verizon. But Verizon isn't allowed to include Frontier in their BEAD application, and that would have probably made their application even better for Allegheny County because the eastern third of the county is covered by Frontier in the old phone infrastructure, but they're not there yet. So that's about all I heard from them.
And Jan, my understanding that Armstrong and the rest of them, the terrain that is left to run fiber to, they probably will never run fiber to because it's too costly and it's too unpopulated to make it a cost-effective way for them. So there's a lot of places here in the county that probably never will have fiber. I don't want to say never, but so we're looking for how to fill that. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah, I have, if we get where we're seriously talking about this, I'll have a lot to say, but at this point, remember the technology that took 5 years to put on those towers is 5 years old right now, and that stuff doesn't, it doesn't last that long. So it's just a point at this point.
Right,
And the
so-
green stuff you see, where you see all that green coverage that you saw on the maps, I don't care if it's our ACDCC or if it's Armstrong, isn't everybody covered in those green areas? That's a block. And there won't be half of them covered when you look at the numbers. There'll be less than half that are actually getting the service compared to what the numbers show be with the big green blocks, so. It'll be an interesting conversation.
Yes, there will be an interesting conversation for sure. So we hope to come back with some new ideas and new vision. So thank you once again. Yeah, okay. Carissa? Trying to.
I do love this topic, and it's one I've been following along for quite a while. And first, I do want to just thank Keir. He is probably our longest running constant for the broadband conversation as we've gone from the county to ACTDC all the way around. So thank you for putting together the history. I think you've got most of it up here. Now you can share it with us on paper.
You've got it. I don't have to think about it.
But one of the reasons we have ACTDC isn't just about the stuff in here. It's the county has requirements that we're not allowed to just go out there and sell a technology or work with private people. This is an LDC. The ACTDC is a local development corporation that can work on broadband issues. So when you talk about small business development or how you work with our local companies, just remember you've created an avenue to work on broadband issues in any of its forms. So if you decide one project, maybe the current project it's been working on isn't something you want to continue forever, please don't give up the tool you created, because that tool could take on new life depending on what the needs are. As people mentioned, technology changes, needs change, but this LDC is a great tool no matter what.
Thank you for that. Okay. Okay, moving on, since we've kind of taken over here a little bit. We have a couple action items, and the first one that I see is a senior account clerk typist, and this is for employment and training, and Rita is in the back, I believe.
Healy will move it.
All right, do we have a second? Any further discussion on that? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Next up, we have a summer youth employment and training counselor. This is through employment and training once again. I think this is something that we do every year. Is that not right, Rita?
Yeah.
And I'll entertain a motion.
Hatchet will move.
Do we have a second?
Ricky?
Any other questions? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Next up, we have the Employment and Training Centers requesting a resolution for the transfer of funds within the following appropriation accounts. The total is an amount of $1,950 for mileage, youth office equipment, and youth economic opportunities. And I will entertain a motion.
Hatchet will move.
Do we have
Ricky, second.
any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Next up is appointments to the Southern Tier West Regional Planning and Development Board. And Brenda, do you want to cover that?
Sure. The chairman of the board plans to reappoint Keir Durlam, Jerry Scott, and Craig Clark as members of the Southern Tier West Regional Planning Board for a 3-year term commencing June 1st, 2025, and expiring May 31st, 2028. This does require a resolution, and we would need a motion if you'd like to move forward with that.
Healy will move it.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Next up would be good of the order. Does anyone have anything for good of the order? I do. I just want to take a minute. I just received this today, and it has to do, since we were talking about Southern Tier West, we had a financial committee meeting this morning, and Richard, who's the director, shared this with me. It's a 5-year look-back history of the money by county of what came into Allegheny County. So we have a 5-year look history of grants that are coming in of $1,506,000, $1.5 million, and with the total amount with the match, it's over $2 million. I'm going to tell you, so in 2020, we received $568,000 from Southern Tier West, and in '21, we received $150,000 from Southern Tier West, and in '23, we received $361,000 from Southern Tier West. These are ARC funds through Southern Tier West that came back into Allegheny County. So in '24, we received $763,000, and in '25, we received $962,000 through ARC grants through Southern Tier West that came back into Allegheny County. Some of those that we received were centralizing production and food service laboratory for culinary arts, and that was in 2020, and I believe, Craig, you were a part of that. Fillmore School received a drone licensing program. Friendship School received money for STEMS program. The Building Trades Job Park Pathway, and I believe that was another Alfred State College? Cat County? No, it was Allegheny County. Yep. Yep. We had a workforce development through refrigerating training enhancements, and I believe that was probably Alfred State College. Building Futures Forward, is that another Alfred State College? Workforce Infrastructure and Training Initiative, again. Alfred State Electric Vehicle Laboratory Project was funded for $133,000. The Allegheny County-wide Trails Master Plan in '24, we received $70,000 for that. We received Meeting the Challenge, Mechanical and Engineering Technology in '25, that was just recent. And of course, our sewer study through our IIJA and our water lines in '25. So that was $101.3 million. So I just wanted to give a history, what Southern Tier West and how it does impact. And this was really interesting because I had never seen this all put in one place before, so.
And those are just the grants. Those aren't the services that
Yeah.
Southern Tier West provides directly to us or our municipalities, too.
Yeah, yeah, so, and with that, if there's nothing left, Dwight.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Richard Zink for his efforts in the Southern Tier West program, and as well as stepping up and helping us on the Allegheny County broadband operation. So he's done a real good work there, and so I just let him know we appreciate it.
Yep, I
Thank
agree
you.
with that. Thank you, Dwight. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Second? All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.